This week was a huge one for airdrop news, with both EigenLayer and Layer 0, two of the most anticipated airdrops of the year, announcing their airdrops. Additionally, it was an interesting week in DeFi with several new DeFi ecosystems either launching, getting major backers, or picking up traction. In today's video, I'm going to go through all of the DeFi and airdrop news for the week ending May 3rd, 2024. Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. My name is Patrick. As a reminder, nothing in this video is financial advice. It is solely intended to educate. Now let's get into it. Before we get into the news, I want to share that these DeFi news segments are sponsored by RabbitX. RabbitX is a perpetuals DEX, so it's a DeFi application, but it lets you trade with leverage tokens like Bitcoin, Ethereum, as well as many other popular tokens. And if you're not into that, then they also have vaults for all of these tokens, and many of them have pretty lucrative APYs. So for example, you can earn almost 15% by pairing BTC with USDT, and I think that's pretty cool personally. So check out RabbitX, link in the description. All right, so let's get into the news. First piece of DeFi news this week, we'll do DeFi and then we'll get into airdrops, is that Build on Bitcoin, also known as Bob, launched its mainnet. This is a Bitcoin Layer 2. Its mainnet launched a couple days ago. And basically, its goal is to bring Ethereum-style DeFi to Bitcoin. There's several other Bitcoin Layer 2s already. There's Merlin, there's Stacks, but Bob is a new competitor in the space. And I think what really sets Bob apart is that it has the Ethereum virtual machine. So in theory, this means that applications that are already deployed on Ethereum or that are deployed on most other chains, because most chains that have DeFi use the Ethereum virtual machine, Arbitrum, Avalanche C-Chain, Phantom, Base, so on. It means that developers from those chains can redeploy their applications onto Bob if they want to get into the Bitcoin ecosystem. And already, since it launched a couple days ago, it's accumulated about $17 million in deposits. Still pretty small, but yeah, it's new and growing quickly, right? In one day, most of these protocols are up 20 to 70%. So, well, we'll say 20 to 40% because those ones down there are smaller. So check it out. Could be interesting. I have no affiliation, but definitely on my radar. Another piece of interesting news, Ondo Finance. Ondo is the premier real world asset application, I would say, at least in terms of market cap. It has over $1 billion market cap, and it has nearly $400 million in total value locked. It tokenizes things like equities as well as US treasuries, and it's gained a lot of TVL recently. So its TVL is up just since the start of April. Its TVL is up from around $220 million to $377 million. So that means that there's been a lot more deposits. And keep in mind, unlike most DeFi applications, the deposits in Ondo, they're typically going to be stable coins, right? Or they're going to be some sort of tokenized real world asset. So it's not like normal crypto products where the total value locked, the deposits increases just because the price of the assets inside it doubles. Ondo, it means there's actually money incoming to the application. So if you're into real world assets, I think that this is pretty interesting. Next piece of news, Tone, the open network, also known as Telegram's network, Telegram's Layer 1. Pantera Capital announced that they are making a significant investment in Tone. We've talked about Tone on this channel before. I think it has a huge amount of potential because Telegram has nearly 1 billion users already, and they're already integrating this blockchain into their app. So for example, people who run Telegram channels, they get payments for ads now. Those payments all run through this blockchain. There's been moves towards having Telegram usernames auctionable on this blockchain. And I think that could just be the start. And there's a lot of potential for payments, for example, on Telegram to start running through this application. And it's been one of the fastest growing DeFi applications recently, just as is, right? Since the start of 2024, this ecosystem has grown from around $75 million in deposits to $480 million. And even if you look at that in terms of the TON token, since it's gone up a lot, by the way, I never know, is it Tone or Ton? I just go back and forth because I don't actually know how it's supposed to be pronounced. But it's even in terms of their native token, the deposits in DeFi have been going up a lot. And so I think that this is is an area of opportunity. The market cap for the TON token itself is already extremely high. It's in the top 10. It's nearly $20 billion. However, I think that there are some ecosystem opportunities. For example, major DEXs are often a good way to get exposure to a chain. Additionally, there's this one application, StormTrade. It's very new, definitely high risk, but they have an ongoing airdrop farming opportunity through providing liquidity where you earn points, and they've already said those points will be exchangeable for tokens. I think that the points meta is maybe starting to fade a bit, but perp DEXs are proven to be one of the most lucrative business models in crypto. And so this is something that I'm definitely interested in farming myself. Although keep in mind, it's new, it's small, it's risky. So don't go all in, DYOR. Next piece of news, MoonPay. MoonPay is a premier way to buy crypto on-chain, directly on-chain, rather than going through a centralized exchange. They partnered with PayPal. So now it's going to be even easier to get your assets onboarded directly to a crypto wallet. In another piece of news about adoption, Uniswap Labs is teaming up with Robinhood to allow you to buy crypto with a debit card, bank transfer, or directly from your Robinhood balance in the Uniswap mobile app. And Robinhood's actually sending users $10 USDC to try it out. And so this MoonPay news, this Uniswap news, this is part of the larger trend of traditional finance or fintech companies, in this case, getting more deeply involved in the crypto space. So take a step back from all the noise of the day-to-day market movements. I think the thesis remains intact that DeFi as an industry is growing. It's becoming easier to onboard. There's more real-world assets being tokenized on-chain, like we saw with Ondo, and all the pieces are being put in place for this industry to become much larger in the coming years. And then the final piece of DeFi news today is that Blast is an Ethereum layer 2. The total value locked on Blast has been continuing to push upwards. You can see it's not quite at its all-time high, but it's been recovering nicely. And on top of that, many of the applications on Blast are up a lot as people try to compete to qualify for Blast Gold. You can see that some of them are up 10, 20, 40%. So there's definitely still some opportunities here to try to optimize your allocation in the Blast airdrop. Next up, we have this week's airdrop news, and there is a lot of it. Before we get into that, quick reminder that this video is sponsored by RabbitX. Currently, you can earn yields of 14, 15, even 20% on major tokens when you provide liquidity on RabbitX. Link in the description. All right, so let's talk about the airdrop news. The big one we have is EigenLayer. EigenLayer announced their Season 1 Eigen stake drop. They're calling it a stake drop, not an airdrop. And this is really significant because EigenLayer is currently the second largest protocol in all of DeFi by deposits. It's got over $10 billion in deposits, guys. And so they announced this. I made a video about it earlier in the week called The Truth About Airdrops. Take a look at that for a longer, unfiltered opinion. Basically, a lot of people were unhappy with this, right? And I would say the unhappiness stems from a couple things. First off, the supply for Season 1 was 5%, which some people were expecting more. Note, they have allocated more to the total stake drop for future seasons. Also, they've since made some revisions to this announcement that we'll talk about. But 5% was less than many people were expecting. Second, the first phase of Season 1, which is 4% of that 5%, so 4/5, doesn't include things like Pendle, doesn't include the LRT finance applications. And so there's a lot of people who had a lot of money deposited, maybe even money spent that they can't get back into trying to farm things on those applications to get more points. And then now they're kind of wondering, well, how much is that going to be worth since only 1% of the allocation is going towards people that are using those applications. And you can see here, they talk about this, that Phase 1 is just restakers and liquid staking token holders. Phase 2 is more complex LRT integrations, which will be eligible after community feedback. So we'll see sort of how that shakes out, but that's left some people uncertain. And then I would say the other reason why some people aren't happy is that Currently, they have claims blocked for people in countries all over the world, in US, which often happens, but US, where a huge portion of deposits and all these sorts of protocols were blocked, but so are people in Canada, so are people in many countries in Africa, so are people in many countries in Asia. Even some European countries are blocked from this one. So I think it's something like 30 plus countries are excluded from the stake drop, and they have VPNs blocked as well. And so I would say it's one thing if you block VPNs from letting people deposit, right? But you're blocking all these countries, you're letting them deposit, and then you are blocking them from actually getting the airdrop, and you've already given them points, right? So they're depositing with the expectation they're going to get something out of it. To me, it feels like either you take every effort to keep them from depositing, or you aren't as strict with the claiming, right? But to just say, okay, we're going to take your money, we're not going to give you anything, feels wrong. That being said, there are ways to get around it. Just search EigenLayer GeoBlock on Twitter. I'm not going to show you how to get around it in this video, but search EigenLayer GeoBlock on Twitter, and there's ways you can get around the VPN block. It just requires some time. So that's what happened, and they announced their Eigen token, the Universal Intersubjective Work Token. Definitely pretty complex, but it is a pretty technically complex project. And based on this feedback, they made some updates. So first off, the original floor on people who were staking with EigenLayer was 10 Eigen tokens. They've upgraded that to 100 Eigen. So people who got the minimum, you got, I think it's an 11x boost, because it's now it's adding the 100 on. It's not just 10 to 100. It's actually 10 to 110. Second off, one of the other concerns people had that I didn't mention was that there were tokens that were going to start vesting soon, and the Eigen tokens are not transferable. Yeah, so that was another big thing, is that the Eigen tokens are not transferable until certain criteria are met. However, tokens are going to start unlocking for early investors at some point. So they clarified the investor and team lockups will remain in effect for 1 year after Eigen is transferable. So you as a community will get it before the early investors can start unlocking, and then they have this unlock criteria. And then they also announced a confirmed timeline. So the Eigen timeline, the features that will allow them to be transferable will happen by September 30th. And then they announced that there's another allocation coming to testnet operators. So valuations aside, some of my other concerns about the geo-blocking and stuff aside, I actually think this is decent resolution, right? They heard feedback from people. They're giving this Eigen to 200,000 users to make up for the gas fees and to make sure that it was sort of supportive to the small players. So I think this is good feedback, right? I don't think that that's too bad at all. Next piece of news, and this is the other big one, Layer 0. Layer 0 is a cross-chain messaging transfer protocol, interoperability. They call themselves the omni-chain interoperability protocol. So if you hear about omni-chain applications, usually that means it uses Layer 0. They announced that they took their first snapshot for their airdrop. And what's really interesting here, and why this has been getting a lot of attention, is they announced they had very strict Sybil filtering criteria. That's basically when you try to catch people who are using many wallets to try to simulate real activity to farm the airdrop. They announced they had really strict criteria. However, they are telling people now that if they come in, they turn themselves in, they tell Layer 0, these are my Sybil wallets, then they can still keep 15% of their airdrop. So basically they're saying, we've probably caught you, allegedly, but if you turn yourself in, you get to keep 15%. And I don't know how many people are taking advantage of this, but I think it's actually not a terrible idea. The other thing they're doing, which is a bit more controversial, is they currently have a bounty out. They have a bounty out where if you can identify Sybil addresses and give it to them, then they're gonna give you a portion of that person's airdrop. They're going to give you a portion of the airdrop if you can help to identify Sybils. And I've never heard of anything like that before. That being said, I think that it'll be an interesting experiment to see if it works, right? If it takes off, then you may see other protocols do this. I also wouldn't be shocked if the list that people turn into layer 0 gets passed around to other protocols to use. So be careful if you are turning in your addresses as Sybils, then it's possible layer 0 could share those with other protocols. They haven't said they're going to do that, but in the past, protocols have shared Sybil lists, so it wouldn't surprise me at all. Next piece of news, Mode Network. Mode, we've been talking about on this channel. It's an Ethereum layer 2 built around an economic incentive program. Well, they announced their Mode token this week. Again, this is just a huge week for airdrops, right? Three of the biggest ones going on right now were announced this week. And so they announced that the Airdrop 1 snapshot will be on May 5th at 1 p.m. UTC. No, that's UTC, not EST, right? So 1 p.m. UTC on May 5th, the Airdrop 1 snapshot will close. So there's still some time to farm it. I have another entire video about some strategies for farming Mode, but you still have another day to get in. Next piece of news, friendtech did their airdrop, right? Again, this is a huge week. Friendtech is the SocialFi application, and the airdrop is currently sitting at around $143 million valuation. Honestly, it's definitely less than I expected it to be valued at. Also interesting experiment because market cap equals FDV right now. One thing to note is that if you got a friendtech airdrop, you can only claim part of it initially. You have to actually join these new groups they called clubs in order to claim the rest of it. And to join a club, you have to spend friend tokens. So if you can't claim your whole airdrop right away, that's why. But if you used friendtech last year, if you got any points in friendtech, you probably have an airdrop waiting for you in the app. So go check it out. I claim mine personally, and honestly, I had kind of written this off. So, even though the market cap is lower than I expected, I'll take the free money. Next piece of news, Sanctum. I made a video about Sanctum a few days ago, but this is a rapidly growing liquid staking token on Solana. It basically allows different validators to launch their own liquid staking tokens, and their Sanctum Wonderland has been blowing up. You can collect these different pets for holding different liquid staking tokens, and then they collect experience. And so I made a whole video on it, so I won't rehash everything here. That being said, I think this is going to be pretty big. It already has over $400 million in deposits, and it's already on its way towards being one of the largest protocols on Solana. So assuming they don't drastically mess things up, like dragging out the points program too long or doing terrible tokenomics, I think this could end up being a pretty good airdrop. Next up, Camino. So more news on Solana. The Camino airdrop went live. I'll link this in the description, but you can claim yours. And then Drift Foundation, so Drift, another perp dex on Solana, they announced their eligibility checkers. Now you can check whether you actually qualified for Drift. And, we've been talking about these Solana airdrops for a while, but it's pretty wild to see them come to fruition, where almost all the big ones we talked about last year have now actually happened or are happening imminently. And if you want to learn more about airdrop and DeFi farming, be sure to check out my newsletter, dynamodefi.substack.com. Every week, I share on-chain analysis as well as a farm of the week. Last week, we shared an airdrop farm on Base. And for more videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.